If it's not at the last second, we don't like it. This is Lazio Lounge.
At the Olimpico, early on in this Serie A season, it's Immobile! Superb penalty! Sends the Olimpico wild. Lazio in front against the new money of Milan.
I think you'd have to say after the initial opening 10 minutes of the game, they've deserved it. They've been the better side. They've looked the more dangerous.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Lazio Lounge. I'm Vittorio Campanile, with me again Alasdair Mackenzie. Alasdair, an incredible final 5 minutes, I would say, of this Sampdoria Lazio match.
Oh yeah, I mean it was a really good game. First of all, obviously it's a lot easier to say that now that we've come away with it with a win. But I was actually saying that before we'd scored the dramatic late winner, that it was just a really good open game of football. But obviously that's all well and good, but you need to get a result from that. Too open for my liking. I'm sure we'll get on to Lazio's performance defensively, but that was definitely a concern tonight for me. There are a lot of concerns, really. It's a strange game, isn't it? Because we've come away with it with 3 points. They were the first team, not just to beat Sampdoria, but the first team to get any points at all at the Marassi against Sampdoria this season. So it's a really great achievement winning this game, and we shouldn't take that away from the team at all. But at the same time, there are also, concerns, I suppose, that we'll be able to raise tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Lazio Sampdoria are the only team who have beaten Juventus this season, and it was funny because Sampdoria have won all the matches they played at home, and Lazio have won all the matches they played away. So you knew that one of the two records had to finish tonight, but I was quite convinced it was going to finish in a draw. Again, as you said, there's a lot of things to talk about, and we're going to discuss a couple of points for sure. I don't know if we're going to be able to talk about everything, but Lazio didn't play very well at the beginning of the first half. But then after that, I thought Lazio played better. I believe that with this 3-5-1-1, if Luis Alberto doesn't shine, and he didn't shine today, he played decent, but not at his usual level. Lazio is not predictable, but it struggles to create incredible chances. And I think if Milinkovic-Savic didn't play like a champion today, Lazio would have never scored.
Yeah, I thought you're right. The first half of the first half, I'd say the first maybe 25 minutes of that game, Lazio were appalling, and it was really, really disappointing because we were texting each other before this game saying what we want to see here is a big reaction from the kind of reaction we didn't get after losing the derby, and that just didn't really happen. I thought when the first whistle went and you saw Milinkovic-Savic pushing a bit further up the pitch, and I thought, oh, here we go. This is kind of what we were asking for last weekend. But it was just leaving huge holes. I don't know. There were big spaces between the lines. The midfield and the defence looked disconnected. The midfield and the attack looked disconnected. And we'll get on to Lulic, but I mean, some of the players Lulic was the worst culprit, but just so sloppy with the ball. I think you're right in what you're saying about if Alberto's not shining, then we're in trouble, and he didn't shine tonight. And I think we got through it with really what was, in the end, a really impressive team performance, and it came back to the same thing we've spoken about after a Juventus game in the past, in terms of Inzaghi instilling this kind of never say die attitude into the team, and we've not seen that in the last 3 games. But we saw that again tonight, and that's really encouraging. Although there are things we'll be able to criticise from tonight's performance, I think we should massively take that as a positive thing, that we've seen that kind of that mental fortitude come back again tonight, which has been such an important thing for Lazio's success this season.
Absolutely. I think it's very positive, the fact that the player wanted to win. you just score the draw with Milinkovic-Savic. You're playing against Sampdoria, who won all the matches at home. You said, okay, a point is fine. No, they keep fighting, they keep pushing. And before talking about the singles player, I don't know if you agree with me. I thought Inzaghi made those two subs to change completely the match, because I believe that Sampdoria was putting a lot of pressure on front on Lazio, and this wasn't enabling Lazio to play as usual, fast passes, etc. So Inzaghi took off Leva, who was struggling when it's time to play the ball, and put Caicedo and Lukaku. So Lazio played again with Luis Alberto and two strikers in front. And so Sampdoria was tired, so they weren't able to push, to do pressing very high. And at the same time, they didn't have a player there in the midfield to mark, who should have been the playmaker. But Luis Alberto was in front, Milinkovic-Savic was near Parolo. I thought Inzaghi changed the tactic, changed the formation, and from that point, of course Sampdoria had more spaces for the counter-attack, but it looks like Lazio took possess of the midfield, and that's why I think in the end Lazio won.
Yeah, I think that was something really disappointing about the first half. I don't know if you agree, but Lazio were losing the midfield battle so badly, and Sampdoria were creating all sorts of chances just from their midfield runners getting forward. I can't think of a Sampdoria midfielder who didn't have a shot on goal tonight. I mean, all of them were coming forward and having efforts, and thankfully most of the time they're off target, and Strakosha made a couple of saves, but the midfield battle was something that was being lost. And yeah, you're right. He did kind of change the complexion. I was kind of surprised with the timing of his substitutions tonight, and also surprised by his first substitution. This is something we've seen before in the derby, being a goal down. I think it was 2-1 at the time, which obviously it finished, but he took off Stefan Radu for Patrick. Tonight he took off Bastos for Patrick, and you're thinking, when you're a goal down, it seems like a bit of an odd substitution to bring on one defender for another, but I think Patrick actually was quite an impressive addition to the team tonight. And what he does do is he really had a sense of urgency. He's obviously, because he's a natural fullback instead of being a natural centre back, he's a bit more confident on the ball, but he seemed like he actually was really trying to push the team up the pitch in a way, and be a kind of driving force going forward from the back, which Lazio needed at that point in the game. But I don't know, were you surprised that Inzaghi waited until the 75th minute to bring on Caicedo and Lukaku?
Yes, I was surprised, and I thought that the first sub was going to be Lukaku. I said let's talk afterwards about the singles, but I presume it's time to start. I thought the Bastos came out because he made another mistake. Now, after 4 or 5, nearly 3 months that he have started regularly for Lazio, we can say that he's a terrific defender who sometimes during the match it's a little bit too, I don't know how to say it. He feels so comfortable that he forgets to push a little bit, to be harder in the tackles and things like that. Because today in the goal, he was completely out of position, and then immediately after,
the goal was awful.
Yeah, he was completely out of position, and then 2 minutes afterwards, he had a header with Quagliarella. He's like 10 kilos. At least 10 kilos, I would say, heavier than Quagliarella, and Quagliarella won the battle, the aerial battle, in the box. That's something that should never happen, especially when you are physical like Bastos. So I presume that Inzaghi was quite upset, and that's why he made the substitution. And it's curious because you had Mauricio, you had Felipe Luis, and so on, and you put in Patrick, who is now playing in that position, but it's not his natural position. So that was a little bit surprising. I believe, as you said correctly, that when Patrick is playing, you feel that he's always having that sense of urgency. That especially when you're down, it's important. So, but on the other side, I was a little bit concerned because Bastos was playing with Zapata, who is another physical guy, and I thought, Patrick has no chance to stop Zapata with a body. He has to be faster, etc. That could be a problem. Instead, I think Sampdoria struggled in the last 15-20 minutes, and Zapata pretty much disappeared with the other players. So in the end, it was the right move. But when I saw it, I said, this could be a wrong move from Inzaghi.
But it also comes back to what we talked about last week in terms of Inzaghi's bench. It's not like he's got a wealth of superstars to call off the bench, so he has to be more creative in the way that he's going to influence the game. And that's, it seemed like quite a smart move. I mean, in retrospect, I think if Patrick had come on and made a defensive mistake, then it would be incredibly easy for us to criticise that. So it's quite a brave decision in a way. As well for him to go for that, especially when Senad Lulic was coming in for a hell of a lot of criticism if you went on social media this evening, and rightly so. I mean, when I'm talking about that first 25 minutes, I mean, he was basically playing for Sampdoria. Every single time he touched the ball, it was just given away, and he improved. I will give him that. Look, I mean, I think both of our wing-backs tonight were actually quite important in pushing us up the pitch and creating the chances we got. Marisic, in particular, put in some really kind of useful crosses, created a few chances out of that. Lulic has provided a really good cross in the first half for Parola, which, was another header that, like last weekend, he probably should have scored and didn't. So, there were positive aspects to Lulic's game, but sometimes he was it was unbelievable how sloppy he was in possession.
And this brings to the question, why is he starting all the matches and not Lukaku? I don't know. I don't know what to think. Is it because he thinks that, Inzaghi obviously, thinks that when Lukaku come in the second half, he can change the game, which he didn't today, though? Or is he concerned because Lukaku is often injured and cannot finish a match? Or in the important match, he trusts more Lulic than Lukaku?
I would say as well, I think it's a combination of so many things, though, isn't it? I mean, it's also, I'd say for Lulic is in the positive column here as well. You could see him really he was very passionate tonight, and you could tell that he cared, and he was shouting at his players, to push higher up the pitch. There was one chance that was created in the first half where I think Marisic pulled the ball back to Alberto, and then instead of shooting, Alberto went and laid it off to Parolo and it basically overplaying. And you saw Lulic just shouting at him, saying, "Shoot!" I mean, it's kind of a worrying thing for our perspective as fans to see Alberto not have the confidence to go for it. I mean, maybe it's overconfidence, you could say, as well, to try and play an extra pass. But I think most of us would have liked to see him just take that shot on. So I think Lulic definitely has an influence on the pitch as in a leadership role. But yeah, and look, I'm not saying that Lukaku is the answer. And that he's twice the player Lulic is, or that he's been exceptional this season. What I'm saying is, at this stage, he deserves a chance to be starting games. He started, 2 or 3 matches all season, and he may not have been that impressive in those games, but he deserves more than just the time he's getting. Lulic has had a lot of opportunities by now, not been great. Lukaku, even if some of our listeners haven't been that impressed by what they've seen from him, he deserves more opportunities to prove he can be a better option there. I understand that maybe in a high-pressure, important game like tonight, it might not be the time that Inzaghi wants to do that, but certainly in games against teams further down the table, I'd like to see them actually rotate the team a bit.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I thought this could be the right chance for Lukaku to play. and give a little bit of rest to Lulic as well. I mean, this is the 7th consecutive match that Lazio play with the same starting 11, which for some reason could be good. You're giving continuity, but I think in this case is a bad sign. It means that Inzaghi hasn't got any other players to rotate, especially in front. With Felipe Anderson and Nani out, there are not really that many options. And I was watching the first half and I was saying, okay, Luis Alberto has to come out, but you don't have any option there. Who do you bring in? Mm-hmm. So that's the biggest problem right now, because I was thinking, okay, today Lazio struggle, but next Sunday we play Felipe Anderson. No, I don't know.
I just saw a comment. Sorry, going back to Lukaku from Moses Al Habib. Just said I think he said he can't play more than 60 minutes. Well, I saw an interview with Lukaku this week saying he wants to prove that he can play more than 60 minutes and play 90. So, I mean, even if he can't play more than 60 minutes, the point is he should be starting games. He should be given a chance to start games, and then Lulic can come on for him with 30 minutes left if need be.
Yeah.
But I mean, it doesn't matter if he's not playing 90. He should just be given the opportunity to actually start. And I'm not saying necessarily that should have been what was happening tonight, but tonight's Lulic's performance tonight is what's bringing this up. I mean. Just a few more comments we had on Twitter. I mean, Greek Stav said Lulic needs to wake the heck up and get his head in the game. I think that was during the first half. Texas Laziali said Lulic must be benched. He's too sloppy with the ball. And then went on to say Lazio woke up after Lukaku was subbed in. He has to be in the starting 11 next week. What do you think? I suppose we've kind of already answered that, but I would say, yeah, I mean, after the way, I don't think Lukaku, I'm not sure I agree in terms of, I'm not sure Lukaku really influenced the game too much tonight.
No.
But I think just basically from the way Lulic played and the way he has been playing, Lukaku deserves a chance next week.
Yeah, he didn't change the match, as we said before. But now teams started to know him, and you can see after the first 10-15 minutes Sampdoria knew that Marusic was dangerous, so they tried to double mark him or be a little bit more aware of where he was and concerned when he had the ball to not let him go, while on the other hand with Lulic they don't have that concern because they know the player. When Lukaku came in, everybody think what he did in the Supercoppa Italiana, so they know what he's capable to do, and they have to keep an eye on him even in a match like today where I think he had a good chance when he put the ball in the middle and Sampdoria defender caught it, but apart from that he didn't do nothing. But still you have to mark him, you have to keep an eye on him, because if you allow Lukaku to take the first 2 meters, then it's gone. You are not able to recover him. So that's something that you have to consider when Lukaku's playing and can make the difference.
Yeah, just saw another comment from Patrick Bowman here saying Lulic may be too bad, but I don't feel Lukaku's the answer as a starter. What realistic transfer would you like to see in that position? So I suppose, do you think this is something that in January we should be looking at in terms of actually signing a new left wing back?
For me, the priority is a striker, and I would be surprised if Lazio sign a striker, a defender, and a left back. I mean, I cannot see it happening with Lotito and Tare. So
I'd be surprised if Lazio sign anyone.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Well, I don't know how you consider Cáceres, because it looks like he came to Verona with thanks to Lazio. So I don't know if you consider him a signing or not, but he could be the first player coming in January. And then today was so evident, Lazio needs someone in front. It's true that Felipe Anderson, cross your fingers, is coming back, but it's 2 weeks they're saying he's coming back. He still didn't play a second.
I think, you know what? I think Patrick can play in that position as well. I think Patrick can play as a left wing back. It's something that he was used in pre-season games. That was a long time ago, and he is Mr. Versatile. But obviously, he's done all right in a back three. It's not his natural position, but I think the energy he's got, just the footballer he is generally. He's not a superb footballer, but he's got a decent all-round skill set, and I think he would actually do a decent job in that position, to be honest.
Yeah, that's probably his best position. The position suits him best. But I like of Patrick the sense of urgency, the fact that he put everything on the field. You know, when the match is finished, you know that Patrick give you everything. Maybe that everything is not a lot, but it's still everything he's got. And going back to Lulic, I think today Lazio was losing the match only because of a mistake of Bastos. Lulic didn't play great, but even with that, Lazio would have drawn. I think the problem today was a couple of mistakes of Bastos. Of course, Lazio wasn't shining as the beginning of the season, but still, don't forget that Viviano made a couple of good saves. Parolo hit the post. I mean, I was already celebrating. And, Lazio had, in the end, more than a couple of good chances. So
yeah, it was a very even game. I mean, when we were getting to the 90th minute and I was tearing my hair out, kind of trying to think of a positive way to look at this, I thought that, a draw was probably a fair result based on the way that game went. So we did well to come out and win it. I mean, I'm glad you brought up Bastos there, though. We've got another comment on Twitter from Balasinko. This has to be the end for Bastos for a while. So much more solid with Patrick, especially our passing. I had such high hopes for Bastos, but he's costing us too much. He makes ridiculous mistakes. I think Bastos he's had ups and downs this season, hasn't he? I mean, in terms of this being the end for Bastos for a while, I think that's probably a bit harsh. I think what's going to happen is that once Wallace comes back to full fitness, and it sounds like Wallace is going to be back in the squad for the Europa League game this week, then that's going to be the thing that will really put pressure on Bastos' position. We might see him drop out of the team, but in terms of a choice between Bastos and Patrick, I think it's more of a question of who we're playing, because Patrick, like we're saying, is more of he's more of a capable footballer, but I would still say Bastos is the more competent defender. So I think that Inzaghi was right to select Bastos in the team for tonight, because it's a high-profile game against a good team away from home. But again, for your home games or for your games where perhaps you have the opportunity for a bit more rotation, then perhaps he's merited being dropped for those games.
And Wallace was playing probably his best football before getting injured this season. He was really playing great. And last season, Wallace was a little bit like Bastos this season, He was playing really, really well and then making some incredible mistakes. So if this season he started better without making those mistakes. So you never know when you come back from a long injury like this one, how you're going to perform. But, having those two players available, it's very good for Lazio. Even because, De Vrij is playing always very, very well. Even today, again, he was nearly perfect. And Radu is probably the biggest surprise for me.
I would say that, look, for the goal, I would say it's harsh to blame Bastos alone for that goal. I think De Vrij is also to blame for the goal, because Bastos has kind of lost his man, but De Vrij's made the decision to go over and challenge in the air with Quagliarella, and that's a challenge he fails to make. And then when the ball's then nodded down to Zapata, who's supposed to be the man that De Vrij's taking charge of, he's completely free. So I don't think that it's just Bastos who should kind of be made as a scapegoat for the Sampdoria goal tonight. I think De Vrij did have a good game, but but for the goal, I'm not convinced.
Well, I think Quagliarella was the Frey man, so the Frey was in the right position. He should have get the header in front of Quagliarella, probably.
From the way I saw it, anyway, he had a decision to make. I mean, he was in front of Zapata, and he moved over to challenge, and he missed. And like you were saying before, Quagliarella, he's a small guy. De Vrij should be winning that in the air, inside his own box. Whether that's his man or not, it's a challenge he should be winning. So, I'm not criticising Stefan de Vrij. I'm just saying for the goal, I think it's a bit harsh to try and blame the whole thing on Bastos.
Okay. Adi saying good left wingers are rare commodity, that is not readily available in the market. Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know who is available, especially in January. But as we were saying before, with Lukaku, Lulic, even Patrick can play there. We still have Crecco, and don't forget, who can play all in Europe League. So we have quite options there. And again, Adi, who is writing us on our Spreaker page, you can chat with us there during the show. He's saying that we are a little bit too harsh about Bastos. Again, I'm not sure. He made a couple of mistakes in the last 3 matches. I still rate him as a good defender, but it's very important for a defender to not make mistakes.
Yeah, I don't think I was being harsh on Bastos. I was just trying to stick up for him.
Then I was harsh. Okay.
I think if you're looking at the defensive three and you're saying that one person needs to be rotated, then out of the three, he's been the most error-prone. I think that's a fair comment. But then again, he's also had some really good games this season.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, we've given him credit when he deserves it. But like everyone, you know, if they make mistakes, then it's worth discussing.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, Radu was the biggest surprise for me so far. I didn't expect him to start, especially in a 3-5-2, but he's been great and never got injured, always playing at top level without mistakes. Probably the biggest surprise this season with Luis Alberto.
Yeah, well, I was about to say, I think his lack of injuries is the surprise of the season, really, isn't it? I mean, I remember, you know, the team when we had a back four when it was supposed to be Radu and Konko on either side.
Wow.
My God, we never had a game, I don't think, when we had Radu and Konko both playing, because Konko was made of glass and Radu was much the same. So it's impressive that he's managed to keep fit, and also now he was at the awards show the other night during this week, and he said that he wants to stay at Lazio until the end of his career. So, you know, it's great to have a kind of bandiera like him within the side, and you know, he's not a guy who's a homegrown Roman and all the rest of it come through the youth system, but he kind of feels like that kind of player by now because he's been at the clubs for so long and he's such a passionate kind of Laziale. So, great season from Radu so far.
Shall we talk about Caicedo goal a minute?
Oh, please.
Now, why he didn't go to the ball at the beginning? He thought he was offside. I thought Immobile called him the ball and said, "Leave it to me," you know, and he stopped. Otherwise, I don't understand.
I assumed at the time that he must have thought he was offside. I mean, I said just before we came on that only Felipe Caicedo could manage to score a dramatic last-minute winner and also be terrible at the same time, because he's missed the chance to score, and he's just got so lucky, really, that the ball's fallen back in his path so that he can fire it in from 6 yards or wherever he was. And I love it. It was such a mess of a goal, but it's actually, you know what, in many ways, in a strange way, I kind of find that even more satisfying than if Caicedo had blasted one in from 35 yards away. It was just such a wonderfully terrible way to win.
And if you see the replay, he's not even on line, you know. He has like 30 centimeters from the last defender of Sampdoria, so he wasn't even close to be on offside. But he left it, and we were lucky enough that Viviano to take the ball off Immobile, pass the ball to Caicedo, who I think scored more goals this season with Lazio than all last year, probably.
Yeah, or as many, I think. Is that 2 now? 2 or 3?
Well, it's 3, I think, at least.
3, well, oof. I mean, to be honest, for the amount of minutes he's played, that's not actually too bad a ratio, probably. I just wanted to read out, we had a comment on this goal from Christopher Thomas. A couple of comments, actually. So the first one was Christopher Thomas saying, I reckon that was pretty intelligent, the way that Caicedo left the through ball. He could have been offside. How was he to know, really? I give him stick, but well done. I honestly didn't think we'd win this. We've been playing far too badly lately since the Italy and Roma results, but well done us. I think maybe, well, it's hard to say. I'll be interested. I'm sure somebody will ask Caicedo after this game about this. I have a feeling it's giving him a bit too much credit to say it was an intelligent decision. The other comment here was from Jad, saying that pass from Sergei to Caicedo clearly justifies the €100 million price tag Lotito put on him. What a performance! I don't know if you want to talk about Milinkovic-Savic at all just now.
Absolutely. We said it in the past game. He was too much doing the freestyler and less thinking about football. And today he showed up. Probably he understood the situation.
He responded to Lazio Lounge.
Yeah, absolutely. He was terrific. Again, he was the usual Milinkovic-Savic. And he's so talented, he's so good that he can do all these, tricks that he likes to do and still be the game winner player, the one that changed the match. He made a couple of skills during the match, simply astonishing. And, he gave that ball that was terrific. But even in the first half, he gave that ball to Luis Alberto and sent him one-on-one against. That was again an incredible pass. So and he's physical. He's really when he plays like that, there's nothing you can say.
I mean, look, it wasn't the perfect performance tonight, but he was the best player on the pitch for us, and he ultimately won the game with a goal and an assist. So, I think I like the idea, by the way, that he's printed out a list of Vittorio Campanile quotes and pinned them up in the dressing room, and he looks at them before kickoff and gets angry and goes out to prove you wrong.
Absolutely.
That's definitely what's happening. Like Felipe Caicedo's doing with his Alistair McKenzie quotes as well. So, so I think I was thinking about that conversation while this game was on, though, because during that opening, the 25 minutes that we've already alluded to before, that was happening again. He was taking too long on the ball. He was losing the ball and being a bit sloppy. And I think that still happened quite a lot throughout the game. But what I also thought was that, look, if you're Simone Inzaghi, or you don't want to say to him, you don't really want to try and stop him or take away that kind of creative freedom from him, because then you miss out on those moments. If you try to say, look, play the simple pass, play it safe, then you won't get those moments like what you just mentioned was the one I was thinking of the most as well, where he turns away on the edge of his own box. He takes quite a risky move to turn away from his marker and play that wonderful through ball that sent Alberto clean through defence into attack instantly. And those kind of moments, you're not going to get those if you have a coach who says, stop doing that and play it safe. So I think with a player like Milinkovic-Savic, we just have to accept that it's not always going to work. And I don't think we can be too critical of that. He's such a enigmatic talent, and clearly such a wonderful footballer, really, in terms of the way he manages to create space for himself. I think it's just that when he has a bad game, it's very noticeable. because the expectation is now so high. And I think he's still not quite reached a level of consistency that would, the €100 million price tag our last comment was about. I still don't think he's reached a level of consistency that would justify something like that. But we can all see that the talent's there and that the potential's there.
Milinkovic is the type of player that you have to understand that he's gonna miss or do a couple of things wrong in the match, but you know that if you continue to give him the ball, then he's gonna decide the match, with an assist, scoring, or something like that. You know that more balls you give Milinkovic-Savic, more chances you have to win. So, and that's why I think he should be playing near the box instead of near Lazio defenders.
Yeah, but at the same time, I thought he was pushing up further at the start of the game today. He's when at the start of the game, we talked about this with Federico last weekend, how it would be nice in a way to see as a potential solution to the dip in form, Milinkovic-Savic kind of pushing alongside Alberto behind Immobile, and I just thought the start of the game today he was really poor, and there was also this kind of disconnect I mentioned before between the lines. There wasn't really much kind of, I don't know, the midfield and defence didn't look very linked up on the same wavelength and same between the midfield and attack. So I still think his most effective position is probably in the centre of midfield, but pushing forward when he gets the chance.
I think Luis Alberto is the trade union between the attack, the midfielder, and the defense. He tend to move all around and keep the team together. But today, I don't know if he was tired or something else, but he couldn't do this job anymore. And that's when you see that, Immobile is too far away, etc. And talking about Immobile, again, today I think he touched the ball once in the box. And he's a striker, he has to touch the ball in the box, not outside. And when he's outside the box, then it becomes more difficult for him to score. And that's the reason why he's not scoring now. He created himself a great chances in the first half and one in the second. Mm. But he has to be in the penalty box because there's where he's really dangerous. Usually a striker is dangerous in the penalty box. He wasn't there all match today.
And if he's not there, then no one else is as well.
Yeah.
That's the problem. I think that's something Marco Parolo has been so effective at recently, is essentially because we've got the midfield three that allows midfield runners, and you've still got enough protection behind. And Parolo's been really pushing forward, essentially into centre forward positions more recently. And he hasn't scored, but he's had a lot of good. He's come very close. He's missed a really good chance against Fiorentina. He missed a good header tonight. He hit the post, like you mentioned earlier. Parolo's essentially playing as a very. He's always done this. This is essentially his greatest asset, is the timing of his forward runs, because it's very hard for defenders or the opposition to actually track him and know what he's going to do, because you never really see him coming. So he's been very effective, I think, going forward. But
and he's very good.
I think just the combination needs to improve. And it looked so slick and fluid at the start of the season, and I don't think it's looked quite as smooth recently. But you can tell it's all still there. It just needs to click again.
Yeah, I agree. Adi is saying that Savic scored today, but he needs to be more effective. He's not reaching half his potential. I don't know about you guys, but I was frustrated by him in the beginning of the match. I also think Caicedo was intelligent, so you're wrong, Alasdair, and left it because he thought he might be offside. As I said, always the potential of Milinkovic-Savic is huge. I believe he can be the best midfielder in a couple of years. But today, I was satisfied. Obviously, he's the type of player who won't do everything perfect. It's not in his nature. But again, give him the ball because he will able to to decide the match. And Caicedo, well, it's good to see him coming in and scoring. It's not the first time. This is the third goal, I think, this season. The first in Serie A, probably. He did 2 in the Europe League. But it's good. It's good for Lazio, obviously, but it's good even for his confidence. He doesn't play that much, but every time he comes in, he scores. That's very important. And today wasn't pretty, but the most important thing is that he scored.
I think just to finish off with Milinkovic-Savic, I think that kind of comment that goes back to the point I made earlier, really, that we as Lazio fans, as people who watch him week in, week out, because we know his potential, we have these expectations of him. And look, when it comes down to it, tonight he won the game for us. It was a goal and an assist, essentially. So I don't know if he's going to get the assist officially for the last goal, but it was him who set it up. He won that game for us. And what more can you ask for, really? I mean, he can be more effective, but that's only because we've seen him at his very best and we know what he can do. But that's what I was saying before, is that to get to that very top €100 million player kind of thing, he needs to be consistently at that very, at that kind of match-winning best all the time, which he isn't.
But for example, today he stepped up in the key moment of the match, right? When we were losing, exactly. He scored, and then he played so well in the last 10-15 minutes. Probably because the other team was tired, and he's so physical, he's so talented that it's not easy to tackle him.
I thought interestingly, that was at the stage of the game when Lucas had been taken out and he'd gone into that position. He was the one who was in the centre of the midfield three and was playing as actually the deepest of the three midfielders at that stage. So that it kind of goes to show what a complete footballer he is, and that's not a role we've seen him in this season, as far as I can remember. And then he goes and essentially wins the game from that role. So he can be whatever he wants to be, really. It's
absolutely if he believes it.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to pick up on another question I've got through Twitter here, if you don't mind, from Patrick Bowman again, but it's about Alberto. So he praises the morale in the squad being amazing, something we touched on at the start. Turning it around after a bad first half. And then he says, Alberto doesn't seem to have the same flow anymore. Is it him or the players around him?
You asking me, or you want to reply?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, I kind of left that one hanging for you, Vittorio.
Okay, well, I don't think he's tired. Maybe mentally he's not. He's a little bit tired because he played that much. And the other teams knows now how Lazio's playing, so they know he's the key player, and they try to block him, like Lazio did last year with Nainggolan in the derby. So he hasn't got the space he had before, but at the same time he lost something. Maybe mentally he's a little bit tired. He feels a little bit fatigued. And as I said at the beginning, with the 3-5-1-1, if Luis Alberto doesn't play as we saw him at the beginning of the season, then Lazio's less dangerous. And that's why I was thinking that probably Inzaghi should change something, maybe give him a rest and try to play Milinkovic there, more near Immobile, and maybe bring in Murcia, who deserve to play, and see if Milinkovic near Immobile changes something, or do like the end of the match and play Caicedo Immobile with Luis Alberto behind. That could be another option. Yeah,
I mean, for me it's that simple. He's playing every game, and like the Vitesse game last week, he's still there, and he's still basically getting a result single-handedly in that match for Lazio, when the rest of the team basically has been given a night off. And it's funny, it's such a strange situation, because we've talked about before the fact that we've ended up with this amazing kind of wealth of options in one position, which is his position. But just we've never had them all fit at the same time. So the thing is, once Felipe Anderson's back, and I really hope they were serious this time when we're talking about him coming back on Thursday, the amount of times on here that we've said he might be about to return and he's not returned. So as long as he is back on Thursday, that would be a huge boost. And obviously Felipe Anderson's a wonderful player in his own right, but it's also very important that we have somebody who can step in for Alberto. But you're right, Vittorio, as in there are other ways around this. Caicedo is one option. Pushing Milinkovic-Savic up, like you say, bringing in Murgia, that's another option. So there are different things that can be done with the options available. But I think just because of the form Alberto's been on, maybe it takes a game like tonight's game for Inzaghi to accept that, yeah, this guy does need a bit of rest. Because I think actually tonight is about as quiet as we've seen him all season, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree. And while I see Luis Alberto tired, especially mentally probably, I don't believe Immobile is tired or he's not scoring because he's not playing well. As I said before, he's hardly in the box, and so that's why he's not scoring. But he's doing everything as before, so I really think Lazio have to do something to be sure that Immobile is in the box and the team passing the ball, because that's the only way how Ciro Immobile can be dangerous. Of course, he can score from outside the box, but he's not the type of player, he doesn't have the strike of, Milinkovic-Savic, etc. He needs to score in the penalty box, and he hasn't got the chances.
Yeah, that's true. I just wanted to pick up on another comment I've seen on Spreaker, actually, from Adi again, which is actually, I think, a really good point. Saying, I worry that Italy's elimination means that Immobile isn't as motivated or hungry to prove himself for the World Cup. Now, I would be hesitant to accept that would be a direct reason that his performances have slipped, but it's actually a really interesting point in terms of, in pre-World Cup seasons, that is historically such a proven motivation for players. And particularly in Serie A, it's going to be interesting to see if there are certain Italian players generally who aren't kind of playing at the level you might expect. Ciro Immobile is one of the guys I say it's probably a bigger shame for him than for a lot of players in that Italy squad, because he would have seen that tournament as a real opportunity to prove his doubters wrong, because from his spells in Germany and Spain, which I've said before, I think he's massively harshly treated on 6 months at Sevilla, 6 months at Dortmund, but there is still a sense abroad that he isn't that kind of level of player just because he didn't succeed there. So I think the World Cup for him was a big opportunity to prove those people wrong, and he doesn't have that opportunity anymore. So I think and I hope that it won't affect him long term over the season, but it is definitely perhaps another reason why we've seen after the international break and after the playoff that there's been a bit of a drop off in form from him.
I think he has now a chip on the shoulder to prove that the fact that Italy didn't qualify to the World Cup wasn't his fault. So I believe, and I'm sure he's going to play even harder for Lazio to prove that it wasn't his fault that Italy didn't qualify. But, in the meantime, Simone Inzaghi talked after the match, and he said, Sampdoria goal, Basto should have been there, De Vrij should have chosen better, and Marusic should have been in the position where Zapata was. So it wasn't the fault of a single player, but a little bit of everybody. Lukaku, he had some physical problem. Now he's trying to recover the best condition. For us, it's very important, but for the moment, he's more important. He changed the match when he comes in, not when he starts the match. And don't forget that at this team is still missing Wallace and Felipe Anderson, who could get back this Thursday and play 30 minutes. So
30 minutes.
Yeah, so I don't see him starting.
Well, in that case, it'll be very interesting to see if Alberto starts again. I suppose the thing is as well that next week our Serie A game is a Monday night game, which is good, I suppose, because it gives the players a bit more rest between the Europa League and the league match. But at the same time, I just think we've won the group. We're unbeaten in that group. You really don't need to be playing Alberto if he's showing signs of fatigue. So even if Anderson has only got 30 minutes in him, I really hope that he goes, say, Caicedo Palombi, or try something different.
Yeah, he could try, Caicedo first half and then Felipe Anderson the second, so that eventually Caicedo is available even for Sunday. Is not too tired. Talking about a little bit of Europe League, even if it's a little bit early. Guerrieri renewed his contract this week, and there were rumors that the deal is that he's going to be the second goalkeeper behind the Strakosha. If not this year, for sure next season. And there was rumors that he could play this Thursday. I would be happy to see Guerrieri starting in Europe League, because he's a youngster, he deserves it, and he can show his level. Because let's not forget that when he was in Primavera, everybody was talking very high about Guerrieri, and everybody was convinced he was better than Strakosha. But at the same time, I'm thinking, what happened with Varcic? If he doesn't play this Thursday, then he's not going to play ever. So
yeah. Well, this is actually a question we got before the game tonight from Alexander Mikkelsen, saying, with the renewal of Guerrieri, do you expect him to be the second goalkeeper and to start against Zulta and maybe Cittadella? I think, I could be wrong about this, because obviously the like you said there, the new contract may have had certain agreements as a result of it, but I would still kind of expect Varcic to be playing in Thursday's game, just because he was playing in the last game. But I do agree with you in that I do like the idea of him playing of him being the second choice. Because what's the point of giving him a long-term contract unless you do have faith in him? And he's a young goalkeeper, so Lazio have got enough games for in their calendar to still give him a lot of time. So I would like to see him, basically. He's not a player that many of us will have seen play any football because of his age and the fact he's come through the Primavera. So I think because he's young and has potential, that puts him above Varcic in most fans' minds, because Varcic probably doesn't have much more to offer than what we've already seen from him.
Yes, and he should be the long-term option more than Varcic. So thinking about that, you should try him. I was still hoping that in January he could find some team that give him some play time. Even in Serie B would be fine, to see if this 6 month help him. Let's not forget that Lazio has Grigioni, that is the goalkeeper training that is considered one of the best in Italy for sure. What he did with Muslera was incredible, and even Marchetti with him improve, and Luke Strakosha as well, etc. So 6 months with Grigioni could have helped a lot Guerrieri. So I'm curious to see where he is, and again he could be interesting to see. Now I don't know. Would you like to go next year with Guerrieri and Strakosha, or would you prefer to send Guerrieri on loan somewhere just to prove that he's a good goalkeeper and can then come back and challenge for the starting role?
Well, like I say, I would be a bit hesitant to say definitely my second choice for next season without seeing him play. Without seeing him play for the Lazio first team, it's hard to say that if Strakosha picked up an injury and the transfer window was closed, we could trust this guy to definitely step in. So I think the sensible thing to do would be exactly what our last questioner was suggesting, which is to give him opportunities now that you've put faith in him and given him a new contract, to give him the chances in the Europa League and the Coppa Italia. I'm not sure that is what will happen, but that's what I'd like to see happen. And if, it's obviously hard to judge a player's ability or potential just from a couple of games, but you can get an idea just from how comfortable they are, especially for a goalkeeper. Actually, it's sometimes a lot easier to see that with goalkeepers in other positions, because it's such a confidence-based position. You're obviously in charge of actually marshalling your defence. You're obviously at risk of more exposure with any kind of errors you might make. So I think that you can learn a lot from watching a young goalkeeper play with an experienced team. So I'd like to see him get the chance. And if Inzaghi's obviously a guy who will know him very well, and if he believes that he's good enough to be a number two, then fair enough. Because it's not an easy position being a number two goalkeeper. I mean, it's not exactly an easy position to fill in the transfer market.
No, it's
when you've
terrible.
got a guy like Strakosha, and Strakosha's, he's only going to get better. He's still so young that you're not going to be able to sign someone and say, look, you're going to be able to replace this guy in a couple of years, because Strakosha's still in his early 20s. So I think you're much better off putting faith in someone even younger, like Guerrieri. So I think that would be quite sensible.
Yeah, I agree, and I hope he gets a chance to prove himself maybe this Thursday directly. But we'll see. I think it's important that he renew the contract, and because it was something necessary. Coming back to the match of tonight that just finished, there has been a big discussion on Lucas Leiva this week. What's your thought about him today?
I thought it was okay, actually. I mean, we had Rami Algendi, only a matter of time before his name pops up. He's sent us a few comments, and he was having a bit of a go at Lucas, saying another awful game by Lucas. Him coming off actually made the team better. But no, I thought he had a so-so game. He wasn't fantastic, but I didn't think he was awful. He was doing the same kind of stuff he usually does.
I think the biggest difference was that Sampdoria is playing like with two trequartisti, and he was often caught in the middle because Parolo and Milinkovic-Savic didn't help him when in some chances when Sampdoria was attacking, and so obviously he was in a very difficult situation because he was 2 versus 1, so that was really tough.
Yeah, I think he was a bit overworked, particularly in that first half. Like you say, I think there was, like I mentioned before, I think Milinkovic-Savic was probably pushing a bit too high up, and that left Lucas with far too much to do, because the three midfielders that Sampdoria had, Prayet, Torreira, and I've forgotten what Barreto. Barreto, I think, was in the three, and then Ramirez was in front. So I think those three were kind of winning the battle, and that was kind of taking up most of Lazio's attention. And then Ramirez was just drifting around between the lines, and yeah, it wasn't as easy as Lucas doing a man marking job on Ramirez, which, if Sampdoria played a more rigid formation, would have been, quite an obvious task to give to Lucas, but it wasn't that simple for him. So I think he did a pretty decent job tonight. Actually, in the circumstances, I think he's probably quite an easy one to criticise tonight, just because he comes off and Lazio look far more dangerous going forward. But then again, you have to remember that Lazio were desperately going for the win at that stage, throwing caution to the wind, and it's great football and it looks great, but in a 90-minute match, it would have been a bit foolhardy to play that way.
Yeah, and I don't agree that it was Luca's fault if Lazio wasn't winning at that point. I simply believe Inzaghi made that sub because he saw Sampdoria a little bit tired and wanted to win. So that's why Lucas Leiva was subbed. And the problem is, as we were saying before, is that now the teams know how Lazio play. So often Lucas Leiva is in this position to be marked by two players. So it's difficult for him to make it work, to perform like that. So I hope Inzaghi change a little bit something before next match, because with Luis Alberto playing like that, etc., Lazio need to change something. I don't know, maybe switch to a 3-4-1-2. Maybe that could be the best option.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see him just shuffle it around a bit. We've talked about that before, and it's not often in a season you get a free shot, which is essentially what the Zulta game is. There's absolutely nothing to lose there. So I think if we're going to see Inzaghi be more experimental, whether that's in terms of selection or in terms of formation, that's going to have to be the game that he does it, because he's not going to get another opportunity. And, it's not only a free shot because we've already won the group, but I think it's a free shot because, as far as I can remember, Zulta are already out. So they've not even got anything left to play for. So, these games, while on the one hand you might say it's kind of a pointless game, on the other hand, it can be quite interesting to watch because it gives you a few talking points in terms of what the coach might be thinking.
And it's important because they give chances to the players who haven't played that much this season to play and show how they are, if they are performing. By the way, let me reply to Greek staff. We are not saying that Lucas Leiva has played bad, simply that Sampdoria was... I think Gianpaolo prepared really well the match. He understood what's the weakness or let's say where you can attack Lazio, and that's his pressing very high to push when the defenders have the ball, and that's why pressing high. Lucas Leiva had two men to mark, and that was struggling. That was difficult. But we didn't say that Lucas Leiva played bad at all.
No, have we been accused of this? I think, you need to be careful with what you say about Lucas Leiva, clearly, before the social media world bites back. Just one more comment. Sorry, I realise we're coming to the end of the show, but one more thing I just wanted to quickly bring up before we finish, because I think it's definitely worth responding to, was a comment from DC, who said that while Milinkovic-Savic will get the plaudits, I think Marasic gets better every week. Another fine performance tonight. And I think he's absolutely right to flag that up, actually, after tonight, because, when I was watching the game during the second half while we were losing, and I was thinking of you putting me on the spot tonight, asking me for a man of the match, I thought that Marasic was actually in a position to win that. He was behind a hell of a lot of Lazio's attacking moves tonight, and I think his delivery could still get a bit better, but he definitely picked out a few good crosses and kind of responded to. I was a bit more critical of him last weekend, but I think he put in one of his better performances tonight. So well done him.
He's growing, and the fact that Basta, who is not injured, didn't play tells you a lot. How much Inzaghi is confident with Marusic, and how much he's improved. Even we said it, he's very good when it's time to attack, but today he played decent even when it was time to defend. Yes, Inzaghi said that probably when Sampdoria scored he should be in the box marking Zapata, but Apart from that, I thought he was great. Not man of the match, honestly. I would go for Milinkovic-Savic, if you don't mind.
But... Oh, no, I didn't say he was my man of the match. I just said when we were losing and I was trying to think of contenders, he was in the contenders list. But yeah, definitely by the end of the game, it was definitely clear, I think, for me too, that Milinkovic-Savic was one of.
But it's good. And I was thinking, Lucas Leiva, Marusic. It's probably one of the first season where new signing not only starts but are key players of the team.
Yeah, and I think when Lucas signed, we kind of knew exactly what to expect from him in terms of his experience, and we're more aware of his positional role and what kind of what role he would have in the team from a kind of tactical sense, I suppose. Whereas Marusic was a complete unknown to us. Apologies to regular followers of Belgian football, but apart from you, we wouldn't really be aware of him. So it's a really nice surprise, and it's another kind of Tare special, isn't it? It's one of these kind of classic Eagly Tare deals where a guy comes in with, and you have absolutely no idea what to expect, and he's turned out pretty well. So I think it's a bit too soon to call him a massive success, but he's definitely shown a lot of promise and done well so far.
Before ending the show, do you want to change your mind on Caicedo? I still remember when we signed him. You weren't very happy.
Look, there's absolutely no chance that terrible goal tonight is going to change my mind about Caicedo. I could have scored that goal. I could have got in the way and then kicked the ball in from 6 yards into an empty net. So, look, I like Caicedo. I think he seems like a great character, and I thoroughly enjoy watching him play. But I still don't think he's a good football player.
I just saw the highlights again, and I'm pretty sure that Immobile calls him the ball, and that's why he left it. I'm sure.
Well,
Immobile was just behind him, and he stops, and
it would make sense. I mean, it was a very Caicedo goal. I can't work out what's the more Caicedo goal, that one or the Nice one. I mean, we're going to have a fantastic kind of highlights program by the end of the season at this rate.
But it's good. He's scoring, We all said.
Yeah,
that,
I mean, you've got to be in the positions, don't you? So I mean, it's the old to repeat a cliche, but that's the difference, isn't it? That you were talking about Immobile not being in the box, and the one thing about Caicedo is he is a classic centre forward in that sense. He was obviously coming very deep tonight at times, but he does generally get himself in those positions.
And let's not forget that we saw strikers miss unbelievable goals. So, last minute, a lot of pressure, you still have to score. So he did it. And he already scored 3 goals. So it's quite good for him. So,
which I think makes him Lazio's second top scorer, joint with everyone else. We've got about 5 players on 3 goals, I think, and then Immobile on 15. So wow. I think so, yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm sure I will be corrected if I'm wrong. But I think our kind of scoring distribution below Immobile isn't particularly impressive.
Yes, because Parolo had hundreds of chances, but in the end didn't score that much. So
yeah, but it's a really big win, and we talked about how big this fixture was, and you and Federico on Thursday obviously did a great job of previewing the game, and that gave a great sense of how kind of crucial this game was as well. So it really is a fantastic result, and tonight we've had to discuss a lot of things, and because questions people have raised and things we've wanted to talk ourselves, which are about kind of criticisms of the squad, but to wrap up, I just want to say it was a fantastic result, and it puts us in a really, really good position in the league table. So we should be very happy and positive going into the Torino game.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's not forget that Sampdoria won all the matches at home and beaten Juventus. So we pointed out some mistakes Lazio did today, but absolutely this is, especially considering the moment, after losing the derby like that, Fiorentina draw like that, it was really important to win again. And the numbers looks like, considering even the Europe League, there's Immobile with 19, Luis Alberto, Parolo and Savic with 4, and then Caicedo, De Vrij, Bastos with
Bastos.
Incredible.
And also the most goals from set pieces in the league as well, and that says a lot about Luis Alberto's delivery as well. From a dead ball situation, I think he's one of the top assist providers in the whole of Europe this season from a dead ball.
And imagine how much it would be if he stopped trying to score directly from the corner kicks every time.
Yeah. One of these days it'll work.
I know, like Milinkovic, Mihajlovic.
Yeah. Well, next weekend would be a great time when we're actually playing against Mihajlovic.
Yeah, that would be funny. That would be funny.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we can wrap it up here. Thank you everybody for listening, for asking questions. We probably will be back Thursday night after the Europe League. I don't know, Alasdair, if you are available. But
possibly.
Yeah.
It's my birthday, so I'll have to wait and see.
Happy birthday. Well, we can do a happy birthday show.
That sounds terrifying.
Yeah, we'll see. Thank you very much for joining me today, Alasdair. Have a nice week, and remember, if you have the chance to rate the podcast on iTunes, that's very important. Follow us on Twitter, on Facebook, on Spreaker, and on our YouTube channel. And good night, everybody, and Forza Lazio.
And there it is. It's Lazio's moment.
Thanks for listening to this podcast. Remember, you can follow Lazio Lounge on Twitter and Facebook. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes, Spreaker and YouTube. And always, Forza Lazio.
I'll tell you what, Lazio will be drinking copiously